Hi everyone, how's it going? I know it's been a while since I actually made a YouTube video or a Facebook video. I was actually on strike for a week because my video was reported. Now, truth be told, when it comes to the reporting of my videos, they usually have some sort of vaccination information on them, but that's usually not the reason why those videos are taken down. The first time that I was reported on one of my videos, it was because I was making fun of this person. And the second time around, one of my videos was reported, was because presumably the people gang stalking me got their being about everything that I'm saying being true and people potentially realizing it's true. So in order to kind of cut that shit down to size, they reported the video on Operation Crimson Mist. Okay, now there isn't a lot of information to go on online, but you are going to see certain subject matters pop up. It's up to you, once you do that, once you look up Operation Crimson Mist online and you see the stories that repeatedly come up, what it's going to be up to you to do is connect the dots between one story that's featured and another story that's featured. Because when you do, you will see connections between that and what is being represented in our fictional media. Remember, the way it works is that fiction is a mirror to real life, and quite often it's a lot more honest than what we see in the news. What we see in the news is often the result of what is depicted in fiction as happening to human beings, right? So, Operation Crimson Mist, go ahead and look it up for yourselves. There's not going to be a lot of information to go on, but if you look deep enough and you look far enough, you'll find the connections there, and you'll find out exactly why my video was taken down and what exactly the people that are gang stalking me and certain people are trying to hide by taking videos like mine down. So that's why I haven't been online for about a week. I've been reported something and all right, fuck it. I just won't focus on anything for now. What actually compelled me to make a video though is the whole Russell Brand thing. And usually I'd try to avoid talking about the celebrity's name and stuff like that, because usually when I talk about popular subjects in the news, I get like a whole deluge of people, following me and talking. Not a whole deluge of people following me, but I get a whole deluge of comments that I wouldn't normally get, and then they fuck off for all the rest of my videos. So yeah, I normally don't mention celebrities by name like that, but the reason why I'm very comfortable mentioning Russell Brand is because he is part of a fringe counterculture movement that has increasingly become confused over the years. Now, I first became aware of the red pill subsect, of society. I first became aware of them back in university, because back in university, that was a very vulnerable time for me. I was going through a lot mentally. People around me were useless. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. They were useless. I was going through a lot of narc abuse. And it was during that time that, one person from my uni who had dropped out introduced me to red pill ideologies. Their dad was in the Air Force, I believe. Their dad was in the Air Force. Again, it's usually the military behind mainstream news and counterculture, major counterculture outlets. It's usually military forces behind it, military intelligence behind it. So this person was the first person that introduced me to the red pill counterculture back in university. Russell Brand was not a part of it at that time. But over the years, even back then, I could see how legitimate concerns about plutocracy and late-stage capitalism was being intermingled with Holocaust denials and misogyny and racism and all that type of stuff. So on the one hand, they were speaking out against racism. they were speaking out against predatory behavior, but then in the same breath, you know, these people want to say that Hitler wasn't that bad. You know what I'm saying? So I've watched over the years, as I've gotten deeper and deeper into this truther movement, exactly how TIs have gotten caught up in it. Now, the reason I bring this up is to illustrate how confused the movement was from the beginning, because in the beginning it was a counterculture that had been hijacked by the far right and by white supremacy. Now, what does this have to do with Russell Brand? What it has to do with Russell Brand is that Russell Brand, on a show with Bill Maher, on Bill Maher's show, he brought up something extremely legitimate, right? He said that basically the newspapers and the mainstream media are basically mouthpieces for major corporations. Now, people have been knowing this. I studied journalism in university, remember? I've been knowing this. A lot of people have been knowing this. There have been endless videos on TikTok, endless discussions about how all of the major companies in the world are basically owned by 6 companies globally. One of them being BlackRock. BlackRock is actually the most powerful of all those companies, and we still don't know who the chairman are of that yet. We still don't know who's running BlackRock or who owns BlackRock. We don't know any of that. That information is kept hush-hush. So this has been something that's been discussed widely. But the second Russell Brand starts discussing it, right? The second Russell Brand starts discussing these things, suddenly, you know, now people care about his predatory behavior back in the 2000s. Now suddenly people care about his emotionally abusive behavior back in the 2010s. Now all of a sudden people give a shit about women being abused. And I can see unfolding in front of me the red pill bullshit on the right side of the equation, and I can see the self-aggrandizing, virtue signaling bullshit on the other side of the equation. The first thing I've got to get into is the red pill bullshit. Now, when it comes to men defending Russell Brand, it varies. The gamut runs from I don't believe he did any of those things to okay, he did some of those things, but he's turned a new leaf now, which is true, but he still hasn't fully taken account for what he's actually done to these people. He hasn't actually taken full account for it, right? So these men are defending Russell Brand, but their defense of Russell Brand comes from a position of wanting to completely deny the systemic injustices done towards women and wanting to shut down or diminish any discussion of emotional abuse or sexual abuse at the hands of men. So what is essentially happening is something that I've been noticing with the truther movement, is that men are using Russell Brand as sort of a martyr figure of truth. Oh, they're trying to crucify him. They're trying to... There are a lot of things Russell Brand chose to do. Okay, there are a lot of things that he chose to do. And yes, at the time that he was famous and he was relatively powerful, a lot of that behavior was allowed to slide. We can't fault Russell Brand entirely for what he was allowed to get away with. We can hold him accountable for what he's done, but we can't blame him entirely for what he was allowed to get away with. Because the same media crucifying him now and talking about his mistakes now are the same ones that are bringing up his past because they don't have an answer for him when he says, well, the media are owned by essentially 6 companies. He didn't say that. I'm adding that sidebar. The media is owned by 6 companies. Okay, so basically when he says the media is owned by corporations who are telling everybody what to say, now suddenly Russell Brand's past matters. But the problem is that men are actually using that to dismiss victims. So they're using that to dismiss victims, and some people are even using that to dismiss all other forms of discussing systemic injustices as well. So essentially what they're doing is they're using Russell Brand as a paragon of virtue against woke virtue signaling. That's essentially what they're doing in defense of Brand. They're not making it about him and making it about the situation. They're making it about themselves. Because ironically, in defending Russell Brand against this blatant narcissistic tactic of deflecting and diverting the conversation away from corporations telling people what to think, this narcissistic tactic of trying to divert the conversation, because Russell's intelligent, I don't have an answer for him, so better bring up his past. The irony of that is that narcissistic tactic that has been done against Brand has been completely ignored in favor of engaging the very narcissistic tactic of diminishing victims of abuse and deflecting from how important abuse is in the conversation. Now, that is what I don't fucking have time for. I don't have time for Russell Brand being held aloft as a paragon of virtue when from the looks of it, he hasn't made it up to any of the women that he's humiliated or made to feel uncomfortable over the years, right? See, it doesn't seem to me he's atoned for any of that. He's done the inner work for himself, but he hasn't actually atoned when it comes to them. He hasn't actually reached out to them or said, you know what, is there anything I can do? He hasn't done any of that. And maybe it's for the best. Maybe it's for the best. Maybe it's best for him to allow them to decide how to handle his abuse. But from what I can see, even though he has turned his life around, to hold him up as a paragon of virtue because you don't want to deal with the systemic injustice of women and the systemic injustice against victims of crimes, that seems really fucking transparent to me. And to do it under the guise of the so-called truther movement is really fucking insulting. So that is one side of the equation that I wanted to talk about. The other side of the equation is where the abuse of women, the very real abuse of women, systemic oppression of women, the silencing of victims, all of this is very real. But that same thing is being used to silence the truth about how 6 fucking corporations are basically in control of every fucking thing. So just like the men on one hand are using corporations to deflect from women's pain are being used on the other side. The pain of women being sexually abused, being emotionally abused, they are being put on the altar of, they are being put on the altar to be sacrificed for ultimately concealing the truth about what the corporations get up to. They're essentially sacrificial lambs. It happens over and over again. Every single time one of these people steps on the toes of the main 6 or the main people in charge, it happens every fucking time. The stories of abused women are always placed upon the sacrificial altar in order to ultimately protect the same people that Russell Brand was talking about. And by the way, it's actually those same people that are trafficking women in various industries, that are even trafficking children through various industries. And we want to turn around and use women that Russell Brand has traumatized in order to paint this picture of him somehow being wrong. Like, are you fucking mad? Are you absolutely mad? Systemic oppression on the one hand and corporate fucking corruption on the other. They are part and parcel of the same thing. And I don't understand how people get this. How people don't get this. I don't understand how people don't get that women being abused and corporate fucking corruption are not separate. In fact, they have been part and parcel of the same thing for a long fucking time, and people are refusing to get it, and I don't understand it. That's why I don't like discussing this whole Russell Brand thing, because he's done some fucked up stuff. Yes, we got to acknowledge that. I don't like him. I don't like him as a person. But at the end of the day, right, he hit on something that is very real and very true. And because he is too intelligent to argue with, again, I've been subjected to the same treatment. So I recognize that. I recognize that immediately. When somebody has something intelligent to say, they make a salient point and nobody can argue with that salient point. They decide to bring up something else. Look at the trolls that I've dealt with. I have dealt with trolls that because they didn't have a decent answer for me when I talked about the paranoid schizophrenic thing with regards to the TIs, what did they bring up? These things here. Because they don't have an argument. I've cited my sources like they asked me to. I proved what I was saying like they asked me to. I came up with salient points like they've been whining to everybody that I should do. But because they don't have an intelligent answer for me, because they don't have a rebuttal, they're resorting to my body parts, or they're resorting to something like they've done it. Perps all over have done it. Because they don't have an intelligent answer for anything that I have to say about MI5, about gang stalking, about the secret police, about the long-range acoustic devices, about the active denial systems, about any of that, because they don't have an intelligent answer. They can't deny what they've been doing, and they can't deny what they're a part of. So what do they resort to? They resort to petty shit. And that's exactly what they're doing to Brand. That's exactly what they're doing to him. Don't fucking feign outrage now, my guy. Don't feign outrage now. You knew what type of man he was. For decades you knew. You knew what type of man he was. So now he's not trying to be that type of man anymore. And now he's actually speaking out, speaking the truth about what this world is actually like. And you don't have an answer for him because you're not on his level. You don't have an answer for him. So better bring up his past. Better bring up his true colours. Because what else can you do in the face of a growing population who no longer trust you? Just resort to the same narcissistic tactics that you've always resorted to in the hopes that it would work for you. When you really put it all together about how increasingly populations are distrustful of the people in power, and it always comes down to this, when you get into how distrustful people have become of the people in charge, it's no wonder the reset button is being clicked and they're trying to wipe everybody out. Because that's what they always do. When the slaves grow too numerous, they have a chance to rise up against people in power. Or when the dissenting voices become too numerous, they have a chance to rise up. So better make unemployment rise up. Better put poverty on the rise. Because if poverty is on the rise, then crime is on the rise. And if poverty is on the rise, then people are desperate to have jobs. And if people are desperate to have jobs and they're committing crimes, guess what happens? When they're committing crimes, they're put in prison. Prisoners make for very cheap labor. When people are desperate for jobs, you can slash their pay. You can slash their pay, get cheaper labor, get cheaper, more skilled labor on top of that. Take away people's education, take away people's, ability to discern for themselves what the truth is and what the truth isn't. Take away all of that. You make them desperate to work, lest they starve and freeze to death like all those who chose to speak out on all those who couldn't get with the program. This whole thing is a lot more sinister than just saying, this narcissistic tactic that is being employed against Russell Brand is concealing something a lot more sinister behind the scenes. People are speaking the truth everywhere and they're finding themselves censored. Think about why that is. Think about why that is. And then among the truthers, it's always the flat earthers or the people who believe in aliens taking up space where targeted individuals should be, where whistleblowers should be. Oh, wait. Most of the whistleblowers, the most notable ones, they're fucking dead. We still don't know where Catherine Horton is. Catherine Horton might be alive, but we don't know where she is. She had a whole fucking court case against MI5. We don't know where she is. So this whole thing that Russell Brand is going through is nothing more than narcissistic abuse. He said something intelligent. He hurt some rich asshole's feelings. And because of that, now his past is being brought up. It is as simple as that. But stop holding Russell Brand aloft as a paragon of virtue. He's not a paragon of virtue. There have been videos out there about his weird ass ways and how suspect he is. Stop holding this man aloft as a paragon of virtue. Just stop doing it. And stop doing it because you feel attacked as a man. Don't any women out there or any victim of sexual abuse find it funny that we know at least one person who has been sexually abused, but men don't seem to know a single sexual abuser? Don't you find that weird? That there are so many women who are visibly traumatized, have all the hallmarks of fucking trauma that they didn't fake, that they can't fake. And yet when you ask so many men, they don't know any sexual predators, they don't know any emotional abusers, they don't know any domestic abusers, they don't know any, you don't find that suspicious? That's why I'm not here for the whole Russell Brand, oh, you know, he's innocent, he did nothing wrong. Like, I'm not into that shit. Again, I know the game. But I see on both sides bullshit. Even when the truth is right in front of you, they're literally having us at each other's throats so that we don't notice that our elderly is deliberately being killed off. So that we don't know that marginalized communities are deliberately being killed off. We're at each other's throats over bullshit. The abuse of women and corporations being corrupt, once again, they are not separate. And they never have been separate. They're part and parcel. They always have been. And people need their heads bashing together. I just legitimately do not understand this bipartisan crap. Because on the one hand, you've got people saying, oh, there's systemic oppression. There's systemic oppression, there's greater mortalities among black mothers in labor. And this is true, by the way. And there's greater mortality among black people in hospital. Also true. Okay. And yet in the same breath, you're going to deny that the government are operating with controlled demolitions of the population. You're going to deny that's actually happening whilst in the same breath talking about systemic oppression. The fuck is wrong with you? You're going to deny that these, that certain people are only creating certain products so that they can you're going to deny all that? You're really going to deny all that? And yet say in the same breath, oh, we're being systemically oppressed, and yet nobody's being experimented on in 2023. Are you fucking mad? And then on top of that, the people on the other side of the equation, you'll definitely accept that, there's gang stalking that exists. You'll definitely accept that, that people are corrupt, but you still don't get the message that eugenics is going on, that white supremacy is going on. You see a hint of brown in your face or a woman being slightly bossy and you think that suddenly you're being taken over. It just goes to show that not only are you so desperate for your racist ideologies to be proven right, you don't know what the first fucking thing about business. You don't know the first thing about how business works. And also you're in complete denial about how predatory some privileged people can really be and how much they're willing to step all over other people in order to remain comfortable. You're in complete denial about that. But when it comes to TIs and gang stalking, you're all over that, but you refuse to acknowledge the systemic part of it. Truthers will literally say everything under the sun except what's right in front of them. Eugenics is still happening. And it's not happening for the benefit of people who are black or brown. And it's definitely not happening for the benefit of women, because quiet as is kept, misogyny is the father of all this shit. But God forbid you should acknowledge that. God forbid. We're all literally going through the same thing. And instead of focusing on the commonalities of what's going on, we'd rather be in a fucking fight about who's right and who's wrong. Now, again, I have to admit, there are certain people who are in a position of privilege who, because they are not obligated to learn anything about those they have marginalized, will most likely never evolve. They will most likely never evolve. They will most likely never get better. They will most likely never learn better because their feelings will always be prioritized over what's right. I accept that. At the same time, all this fucking beefing, like, it's all this beefing, and it's like, our elderly are dying. Like, are you not understanding? Our elderly are dying. There are people in your community being irradiated to death, being betrayed by family and friends to their fucking deaths. There are whole neighborhoods complicit in the murder of a handful of people within each neighborhood and within each community. It's literally happening. Nazi Germany is happening globally, and it's happening right in front of people's faces, and they don't seem to understand it's happening now. Get the fuck off your ass. It's happening now. This Russell Brand situation is a perfect example of that. Man says something intelligent. He says something that we're all thinking anyway. Next thing you know, he's the victim of a narcissistic tactic. And ironically, people on both sides of the argument, they reveal their own narcissism in the process. Because nobody is focusing on what's really important. The fact that 6 corporations own everything globally. Our banks, our pharmaceutical companies, our healthcare systems. And if they own our products, you best believe they own our governments. What are we doing? What the hell are we doing? So yeah. Anyway, I just came online to talk about that. Also, what else did I want to talk about? Oh yeah, I talked about the report. I haven't heard anything back from MI5 because I said I wanted them to give me copies of what they thought I already have. I wanted them to give me copies of it, and they haven't gotten back to me yet. I'm going to chase them up. I'm going to chase them up for those copies, and I will ask them additional questions on the side as well, because it's just, nah, this is beyond a joke. You are willing to sell my information to the US, sell God knows how many millions of people's information to the US, but you won't give me my own fucking information. Like, what the hell is going on? What is literally what is going on? Anywho. Yeah, so what else did I want to talk about? Russell Brand. I've covered everything. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, the truth and movement has always been a mess. It's always been a mess, and it's always been, you know, I feel like, because I talked about it being co-opted by white supremacist movements in the past, but now I'm starting to think that, you know, some very wealthy white supremacists might have had their hand in it from the start, given how everything's turned out. But yeah, it's a mess. And ultimately what we're seeing is not a fight between who's right and who's wrong. Essentially, it's like a global market competing for control over the entire world. It's basically what we're seeing. I've talked about it being white supremacy, and there is some truth to that. It is white supremacy, but it's more complicated than that. There are countries that are far wealthier than the UK and the US. First of all, the UK and the US are breathtakingly fucked financially, in mountains of debt, mountains of fucking debt, you know. And you know, the only thing that they have in their corner is advanced military technology, which, you know, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was what they sank all their money into, advanced technologies, because that's how they've been operating this entire time. They've been creating wars and choosing leaders in each country to depose and reinstate so that they can have control over resources over the global south. That's how they've been doing it all this time. So it's, you know, it's white supremacy, yeah, but it's more complicated than just white supremacy, because there are several wealthy and up and coming countries competing for power over the rest of us. That's what we're witnessing right now. And what we're doing right now in fighting with each other over bullshit is just, and I call it bullshit not because it's not true, it's because one nugget of truth is used to tell a lie. The abuse of women, the abuse of women in all ways, in the case of Russell Brand, like I said, has been used to deny the truth of corporations engaging in massive corruption against people. And then on the other hand, the truth about corporations is laughably being used to obscure problems of racism, sexism, queerphobia, all types of xenophobia. So it's like there's so much going on, and it's like they're both partners. Xenophobia and the denial of corporate corruption, they're partners. They're not fucking enemies. They're partners. They're partners whilst we're out here fighting about who's right on either side. It's mad. It's absolutely mad. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's my take on the Russell Brand thing. I think it's pretty jumbled or whatever. I think it's pretty jumbled considering. But yeah, it's pretty jumbled. Yeah, it's Trump. Yeah, it's pretty jumbled, really, what I've been saying. You know. Oh yeah, the neighbors are not harassing me as much. I think at least one of the relatives are still talking shit about me. I expect that because, you know, that's the only way they can get attention from me or their family. But, you know, apart from that, there's not really that much going on. They did try at one point. I can't remember when it was. I think it was just before I left for my mum and dad. Like, they were just shouting, "Who are you talking to?" I'm like, I ain't talking to nobody. I'm in my flat. Like, shouting, "Who are you talking to?" Another one shouted, "Oh, we're not Nazis," because they were trying to shout something in order to start a fight so that they could section me. I don't care anymore. Like, I really don't care anymore. Like, at this point, right, everything that's happened, they brought on themselves. They brought completely on themselves. I didn't elect to fucking harass them for 2 years. It's coming up to 2 years in November. For like the first 6 months, yeah, I made it about them. I made everything about them because it was reaching a crescendo. You know, they were fucking feral and out of control. I mean, they still are. But it's like, I didn't elect to harass you for 2 fucking years. You're harassing me for 2 years. I've been minding my business. And the fact that I've been minding my business it's been killing you. And on top of that, you know, you're painting this picture of me as being, oh, she's scary. Oh, she curses people. I'm like, my guy, you're literally involved in genocide right now. You're involved in the genocide of somebody who is just as marginalized as you are. You like to victimize yourself and say that, oh, I'm going through this. I've got mental illness, but yet you're fucking committing genocide or enabling the genocide of somebody who is mentally ill just like you are. And then on top of that, they're not surrounded by family. They're not surrounded by friends in the same way that you are. They're not surrounded by dick riders in the same way that you are. And yet you want to victimize yourself when you're confronted with your behavior. And then on top of that, every single time, again, the same thing with Russell Brand, every single time I talk about the truth of your behavior and what it's leading to, you want to report my videos, you want to stop me from doing what I need to do, you want to stop me from focusing on my readings, you want to stop me from focusing on doing something productive so that you can feel better about being a piece of shit that enabled the genocide, not only of the genocide of people like me, but also facilitating the genocide of millions of your own people. Because, yeah, you don't want to deal with that reality, so of course you don't want me here. Because every time I'm here, you are reminded of what you are. Every single time I'm in my flat, you're reminded of what you've done and who you are. And because you have no self-respect, because you have no accountability, because you ain't got nothing to fucking do apart from get drunk or shout at each other all day, because you ain't got shit else to do apart from try to terrorize me or spy on me or report back, because you ain't got nothing else to do, and because you've got nothing else going for you, you try to blame me for stuff that you willingly got involved in. And you try to blame me for stuff that you're doing. I didn't tell you to harass me. I didn't tell you to fucking be involved in a genocidal setup. I never told you to do that. And that's the thing that all perps do. They blame me for the fact that they got involved in human trafficking, genocide, torture, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. They chose to get involved in that shit. I didn't get them involved in it. I don't ask people to harass me for a year or 2 years. I don't ask for that. But people want to do that because they feel like they have no power over the situation. But you had no power the second you decided to do this. You could have done it to a woman who was meek, who wasn't like me, who was like unable to turn it around to their advantage in the same way that I was. You could have dealt with somebody like that. And you could have felt good about it. You could have felt good about yourself knowing that that person was too broken, too beaten down to ever talk about what you were doing. You could have had comfort in that, but it still would have amounted to the same thing. It still would have amounted to genocide. It still would have amounted to you being the shittiest fucking people on God's earth. But the only difference is you would have felt good about it. And it really is a testament that that is what's most important to you, that you feel good about what you're doing. You want to feel good about being a cunt for 2 years. You want to feel good about being feral, disgusting, insulting, disrespectful, bullying cunts for 2 years. You want to feel good about that. And again, that's the least of it, because all that bullying that you're doing is contributing to trafficking and fucking torture and genocide. You want to feel good about that. That's the main thing. That's the main problem that you have with me. And whilst I'm here, I can't allow you to feel good about that. My mere presence makes you feel bad about something that you're supposed to feel bad about. That's your main gripe. You don't care about me. You don't care about other TIs that have been killed because of people like you. You don't care about any of that. And you're not obligated to care about any of that, but be fucking honest. You're not obligated to care about me. You're not obligated to care about, people like us being murdered. You don't know us. You don't know us. So why the fuck should you care about murder? Why the fuck should you care about the fact that, the torture that you're involved in could kill me? Why the fuck should you care? Who gives a shit? Why should you care? So I get it. I get why you don't care. But the thing that I find baffling is that you don't care about that, but you not only you know, it's not only that you don't give a shit about me, but you expect me to care about your feelings. That's what I don't get. That's what I don't get. Like, you don't care about me or the people that have already been killed due to gang stalking, but you expect me and TIs to care about your feelings. Are you that empty inside? Like, are you that empty? I have to ask. Do you know what I mean? Unless I care about you and I stop being upset with you, you're going to talk about my body because you don't have an intelligent answer for anything that I've said. You're going to talk shit about my race. You're going to talk shit about because you don't have any intelligent answers for me. And I'm supposed to care about your feelings. And let's be clear, I've demonstrated that I understand where you're coming from. I can empathize, but it doesn't mean that I care. Not when you're contributing towards the deaths and torture of millions of people. I don't have to give a shit. And for like some of you for 2 years, for 2 solid years. And again, it's not just these people, but there are people who are perps that think I don't know that they're perps, that think I don't know what they're doing. And they think they're clever and they think they're slick, but really they're cowards. They're cowards, and they're selfish cowards, and they're narcissistic cowards. And they think that they're doing right for, you know, for whoever they claim to love, when really all they're doing is covering their own ass. And some of them are black too. You're black, you're working for the same company, you're working for the same people who, when your parents came over here, they had your parents and your family spied on. And that's nothing to say of all the black movements over here, the black power movements over here that were disbanded because of MI5, MI6 involvement. That's another conversation. So you're going to work with people who directly work against your own interests. What? You're claiming that it's to survive when really it's just that you can floss impressing people that you don't like in the first place. Let's cut the crap. And claiming that you're doing it for your family. No, you're not. You're doing it for you. Because you're not thinking about what would happen to your family if you didn't do what was asked. You think about what would happen to you if something happened to your family. That's a very different enterprise. What you're doing is not noble. What you're doing is not just. What you're doing is fuckery. It's cunt behavior. And you want to be congratulated for it. You want the same people that you're torturing to rub your feet, kiss your forehead and give you a gold star. Not on my watch. Not on my watch. But anyway, I gotta go. I don't really have a lot to do today. I don't have anything to do, quite frankly, because I've done all my readings for now. I've got another reading coming up for the 6th. But yeah, I'm just going to do absolutely fuck all tonight. Maybe watch a film. I don't know. Maybe watch a film, like take my mind off how horrible the world is and how dense people are. But yeah. Well, I guess we'll talk soon. And before I go, please, my fellow TIs, if you have made it all the way to the end of this video, please let me know in the comments how you're doing. Not just here on Facebook, but also on YouTube when I upload again on Tuesday or Wednesday, because it's Monday as I'm filming this. So probably Wednesday. I'm gonna upload this video on Wednesday, and then you guys can tell me how you guys are doing, what's going on with you, you know, what's new in your life, all that good stuff. So I'm gonna go now. Peace and blessings. Take care. Bye bye.